All right, here we go. Welcome to this, I don't know, podcast nobody asked for by somebody you never heard of about a skill that nobody really cares about. I'm James. I am just in the process of reviewing all my Multiblind stuff, and I realized that it's taken up a whole lot of storage. I record all of my solves. Usually I watch them back, and yeah, that's a lot of storage space. And I figured, why not let YouTube share some of the burden? And I kind of wanted to be recording them in the first place to be just kind of like documenting the journey, how things are going, etc. So I'm usually making notes on these kind of things when I'm watching them back. Uh, and just decided this time to add some voice, upload it. You can watch it if you want. You don't have to. Don't really care if you watch my other videos. Watch the other ones. Got a good one on peripheral vision. I'd like everybody to try. Let me know what they think. I've got one I just put up on warm ups. But yeah, don't feel under any obligation to watch this, or don't come into this on the assumption that you're gonna get anything from it, really. Gonna try and make some comments on kind of what was going on so I can look back at it, and we'll see. Maybe it'll be useful, maybe it won't. Maybe I'll do this every time, maybe I won't. So this was the Irish Championships 2024. This was my attempt to retain the multi-blind title from the year before, which I failed to do. Yeah, that was interesting after 3 years in a row of winning it. This time I placed, can't even remember, I think fourth. So that was a bit of a bummer. But it was specifically because now the standard of blind solvers in Ireland is getting really good. So that's kind of fun to see, even if it means that I don't get to sit at the top. It's been kind of coming for a while. So like every competition I go to, I've had the NR for 5 years and was very much expecting almost every time that, is this going to be the last one? Is this going to be the time when somebody else gets it? And at this comp was the time. So congrats to Simon Kelly. For me, was not too bad actually, because I didn't feel like I performed really badly, just that everyone else was better. And that's kind of what you have to hope for. And if that is the case, you need to learn how to deal with it properly, like not be super upset about stuff that you couldn't control. You can't really control how hard other people are going to work, how quickly they're going to learn things, how lucky they're going to get or unlucky. Like all of that stuff is outside of your control. You can only really control the stuff that you're doing. And I didn't do great, but I didn't do badly either. It was a pretty average performance for me. So had a little moment of like, oh, that sucks. And then afterwards, kind of just got on with the competition, and it was all fine. And then now, coming off the other side of it, I've kind of tried to take things a bit more seriously. So for the last couple of years, I've been making it my goal to be as consistent as possible with training multi and just getting it done. And I've been moderately successful at that. Like most days, I will do a multi solve. But what I have found is that the actual quality of the practice itself has been a little bit mindless. Like, I like thinking about new strategies, new ways that I'm going to approach doing blind solving, but usually I'll just go off whatever feels the easiest, whatever feels like it either comes the most naturally, or if I'm like, oh, that makes logical sense, I should practice like that. And if I was to be completely honest with myself, I'm not sure that those methods that I chose were stacking up completely. So like if I was to look at how I was practicing, I would choose a method and go, okay, that'll make me better. But then I wasn't looking afterwards to see, is this really working as I expect that it should? And that meant that I would go almost till like the next competition before I would see what the problem was. So for quite a while, for a few months, I was practicing to just rush the memo to just see if I could get my memo time down a lot quicker. And then I would find like I was just tracing, but I was never trying to actively recall each cube. Is I would do the first three, and then when I would review cube number one, I would just trace it again because that was faster than trying to force myself to remember. And I did that. I think it took about 3 competitions of getting kind of bad results before I realized, oh, hang on, maybe you actually need to practice recalling things. And then I would think about it for a little while and just try and implement whatever I thought was best. But now I've kind of given myself a bit of a kick and gone, okay, cool. I'd quite like to improve a bit quicker than I currently have been, especially because it's kind of exciting when you get caught up in a bit of a wave of people getting better. I always see in most of the sports that I work in, when you don't have a group of kind of similar people to latch onto, it's really, really hard to see your skills improve. So, for example, with speed cubing in general, when I was training 3x3, I did almost 10 years before I even decided to go to a competition, and my improvements were super slow because for the first 3 or 4 years, I didn't even think to look at the internet or like forums or anything like that. I think I saw a few YouTube videos on how to get better, but I couldn't even have told you other speed cubers who were good. I knew Felix, and that was it really. And so my progress was mega slow. I pretty much hovered around 20 seconds from about 2 or 3 years in for a further 5 years. Never really saw a huge amount of progress in that regard. And then as soon as I got to my first competition and I was kind of meeting other people who were super fast, my progress just exploded because you're seeing other people who are doing things either the same as you and you're like, okay, that's good. You're seeing people who are doing things differently. A huge thing that I took from getting better at speed cubing was just watching how relaxed all the really fast guys looked when they were solving. You didn't see anybody that was really straining, which is what I felt like I was doing when I was doing my solves. And that really helped me to just see my times improve by a whole lot. When I got into blind and I decided I was going to try multi-blind for the first time, it was really only because I saw that the NR, the national record, was like 9 out of 10, and I was kind of like, well, I can afford 10 cubes. I could try it out, and it wasn't massively difficult. I could solve a cube blindfolded in about 3 minutes. So for 10 cubes, actually, I had a whole lot of extra time, and it wasn't hugely difficult to kind of break past that. But most of the competitions I was doing were in the UK, and when I would look at like the others competing, they were always competing like a lot higher numbers than me, so it always felt kind of unattainable, or like I didn't resonate with that going on, and I couldn't really see how I could get to that standard. And because of that, then I didn't have that much motivation to keep improving my training and stuff. So now that kind of everybody else in Ireland is getting better at a frankly insane rate, it's like really interesting between competitions how fast everybody's progressing, while I've just been kind of hovering around the same numbers for a little while. When you get that kind of situation and people are around the same levels of ability, it becomes really easy to motivate yourself to push yourself a little bit harder, see what other people are doing, see how other people are doing it, and improving in that way. And kind of hoping that I can borrow some of that motivation. And this month I've really been working on my 3-blind times, because I always thought they were fast enough to be doing, even up to maybe 30 cubes in multi. But now I'm thinking, well, yeah, they might be, but what if I could drop down the 3x3 times, get my memo a lot faster, get my execution a lot faster, because it's pretty terrible. It's at like, I think I average 50 seconds with execution and about 20 seconds with memo. So execution could come down quite a bit at this point. And so in terms of this solve in particular, one thing that kind of annoying on both of these solves, I didn't get to record my face. I'm going to need to work on setting the camera up a little bit better so that I can actually see my facial expression. One thing that I always am quite interested in when I'm doing any kind of solves is how much stress I look like I'm under, because the more stressed I am, especially for memory, that's going to be really, really bad. And that's stuff that you can work on without doing any kind of solve. So, if it looks like things are bad, then it's, have I done my breathing and all the stuff that I normally do before the solve? Have I got enough sleep? Usually when I'm coming back to competitions in Ireland, is like, well, you were probably hanging out with friends or family, so were you drinking too much? Were you eating the wrong kinds of things? All of that kind of stuff. So ideally, I would like to be able to see, like, if my facial expressions are always changing, that's usually a pretty good sign that there's a lot of stress going on. Especially like eyebrows raising, eyes widening. One thing that is kind of showing up here a little bit is touching my face every so often. That was a really big problem in the competition before this, and that's a very big sign that, like, you're stressed, you're nervous, you're scared, and that would be a sign that, the next month you just need to work on reducing stress in psychological ways, physical ways, any of that. But unfortunately, can't see too much. Like I said, a little bit of sort of face touching and stuff like that. So maybe could do with a little bit of tweaking. In terms of the memorizations, haven't actually spent too long time in these, but we'll see now. So I would normally be aiming for about 20 seconds per cube, and if I'm getting 20 seconds, that's pretty good. And this one looks like it's coming up to 20, shooting way past 20. It's about 25. Okay, so a little slow, especially since that was a review. I'd want that to speed up a little bit as well. But overall, with a general feeling of the solve, I don't remember anything bothering me specifically. it was either this solve or the next one. There was a bit of noise coming from the gym during the execution, but even that wasn't too much of an issue. It was just something that I could deal with and move on. So I think like stress levels, technique for what I was capable of at the time, probably pretty good. Did end up changing a bunch of things with my memo though right after this comp. For a start, I decided to experiment with person, action, object. So rather than doing letter pairs, and what I'd been doing up till this point was just people. Every letter pair was a person, and yeah, I would just have pairs of people. So two people interacting with each other up to like 6 or 7 times for the edges, and the same thing for the corners. Again, 2 pairs, maybe 3 pairs of people just having some kind of a interaction, and that seemed to work okay. But usually I found I was really good at getting the first 4 people, first 4 letter pairs, and then the rest were a bit of a blur. So I decided to see if I could condense it, and also have a look at if the action would make it easier or more difficult to memorize. So that's been something that I've been playing with this month, and we'll see how it goes. I've got my next comp in 2 days' time. That will be the Portuguese Championships. So we'll see. If I enjoy recording for an hour, then I might do another one and see how it goes. Also decided to work on my spatial awareness a little bit. So once I finished this solve, I kind of got up and had a look around, and I usually organize my cubes into these 3 rows. So just like row of 6, row of 6, row of 6, with no real like thought or care as to where they're placed. And then once I get to the solving stage, I kind of just try and reach over them. Every time I solve one, just try and reach as far away as I can to put it down. And you'll probably see it later on, but I seem to be really good at putting cubes on top of other cubes. Like once I put the first one down, I'll almost always reach to the exact same spot and be trying to put the next cube on top of the previous one. So it's kind of like, interesting that with no sight, I seem to be pretty precise in my movements. And then when I got up and I was walking around, I was seeing everybody else was literally picking up the cube and then putting it back in the exact packet that they just got it from. So like if it was cube number 3, they just pick it out of the number 3 spot, solve it, and then put it back in the number 3 spot, which I always thought was total madness. I mean, I've seen people do it, and I just never gave it any thought. And then, like I said, it's kind of that thing of when you see someone like Ezra do it, maybe it's just me, but my mind just writes it off because I'm like, yeah, he's doing that, but he's doing like 40. There's stuff that you just can't comprehend yet, so you don't even need to give it a thought. And then when I saw actually everybody was doing this, then I kind of went, oh, maybe actually I'm the one who's got it wrong. And I always just thought it was total madness, because when I put that cube down, what's to say I don't pick up the exact same one, or I don't move on to the next one, or skip one out. It just felt really silly to me. But that's been something that I've been trying to play with. I guess as it gets to bigger numbers, that's going to be more important. And it might help to make me feel less stressed and nervous when I'm doing solves next to people, because that's always been a big deal for me. Is like somebody sits down next to you, and then straight away my mind goes into this panic of like, oh, now I've got to think about where I'm putting the cubes, because I don't want to get them mixed up. I don't want to be, moving their stuff around, ruining their solves. It's never happened, and it's never even come close to happening, but it gets stuck in your head, and then anything, when you've got any kind of nerves, just kind of circles around up there, and gets pretty intense. So again, I'll be trying that in this next competition, and don't know, maybe I'll be reporting back that I hate it, but you never know. I think I've got a bigger problem with skipping rooms. So when I'm in the execution stage, I will pick up the correct cube, but I'll jump one room ahead. And that's happened a couple times in the last little while. And that might be because when I'm practicing, I'm not always doing the same numbers. So here I'm attempting 18. Normally when I'm at home, I'll go for higher numbers, again, because I'm trying to rush the memo. I'm trying to trace a little bit faster, so I figured the more cubes there are, the more I'm going to have to push that. So before this comp, I was doing, I think 30, no, I was doing 40 on Mondays, 30 on Tuesdays, then 21, no, completely wrong. 40 on Mondays, 30 on Tuesdays, 24 on Wednesdays, 21 on Thursdays, and 18 on Fridays. And then the idea was just, increase the load, get better at the tracing, get faster at the memo, and then 18 should feel really easy. And to an extent it did, but the problem was, so if you can see here, I kind of review every 3, so I'll do the first 3 cubes, review the first 3, the next 3, review the next 3, and then review the first 6. So it kind of goes 3, 3, 6, same for the second row, 3, 3, 6, third row, 3, 3, 6. But when I'm doing 40, I add a cube to each one. So I'll do the first 4 and review, then I'll do the next 4 and review. And if I'm doing 21, then it doesn't even divide, because I'll do them in rows of 7 for the sake of still having 3 rows. So then I'll do 4 in review, then 3 in review, and then review all 7. And that, I think, was a mistake, because it's leaving me forgetting which cube I'm on. So like when I'll do those first 3, and then when I'll pick this one up, I'll go, oh, this is the first one of the new block, which sometimes is cube number 4 and sometimes it's cube number 5. And I think that's what it was. I think that is what has been causing the confusion, but especially on that first row there, almost always cubes number 5 and 6 in competitions, I've been getting confused. Sometimes I catch it early before I actually start the solve, and sometimes not so lucky. So I'm trying to plan out my practice a little better so that as it gets closer to the competition, I've got fewer variables. I still want to be pushing the big numbers to, like I said, improve the tracing and improve how quickly I have to memorize, as well as just like increasing the load in general. So, when you've got 40 rooms to remember, it takes longer to remember which room you're at, which thing you're supposed to be doing at any one time, and the quicker I get good at switching between all of those things, in theory, the better it should become. But then maybe that's a problem. Like I said, I haven't been critical enough of how I'm doing things, and I think that's what I need to change in this next round. Curious to see now as well how quickly I'm actually reviewing these. So again, I usually set myself 20 seconds. When I practice, I try to be as uniform as possible, so even if I don't need that extra time. I try to just force myself to have it to give me an idea of how slowly I can be going. Um, that's about 17 seconds, so not too bad. Um, but yeah, I find in competition I have a tendency to rush myself, always thinking like I don't have enough time. Tried a few things to combat that for this one. Number one, I actually bought myself a stopwatch so that I could give myself visual reminders before I was using a timer on my phone. But the problem is the timer counts backwards, so it's not actually giving me a good representation of how much time I've got left and what time I should be getting to specific cubes. And this, I'm not quite sure what's going on. I think maybe I recalled cube number 5, or like a section of cube number 5 in cube number whatever that is, 9, and had to double check. But yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that one, I'm afraid. So still feels like there's ages of memo left. So this is the final review, I guess. No, it's not. I'm gonna review these. I'm gonna do 3 reviews of, a memo and 2 reviews of the third packet, and then I'm gonna do a review of everything. So in total, it's kind of 5 rounds of the first 12 and 4 rounds of the final packet, which feels like plenty, I think, in terms of memo, especially for this much time. It's hard to figure out what could be going wrong with memo. Like, I feel like this is pretty decent for me. It's pretty average, and yet something always seems to go wrong. So we'll see. I got a feeling it's probably all going to come out in the execution rather than the memorizing stage. I think in general, I kind of just have too much stuff that's unfamiliar to me. So over COVID, I started trying to learn 3-style, and I guess just because I'm a lot older, this kind of stuff comes super slow to me anyway. I've generally, all my life, I've been a slow learner, but I tend to just be really good at like endurance and kind of plowing through stuff. So I can do the work. It usually just takes me quite a while to get there. And I've been kind of running through 3-style for like 3 or 4 years now, but I've never properly sat down and tried to optimize the algs or anything. Occasionally I'll have like a little spurt of going, oh, these algs need to be better, because I kind of took all of my 3-style algs from initially learning turbo. I didn't learn M2 because it was too confusing, and I just decided, right, I'm going to learn turbo edges, which was super fun. I quite like turbo edges. I don't know why nobody uses it now, other than maybe there's better methods that you can learn them quicker with, but turbo was pretty fun. But it meant when I learned 3-style, most things are setting up to turbo if I can't think of the right thing to do. And I've kind of tried to break away from that, but I think it's going to be mostly execution where all of it goes wrong, because a lot of my algs I'm not very familiar with, I'm not very comfortable with, and yeah, just the fact that I haven't really been working on my 3-blind times, or I have now. I think that's what caused the biggest issue here, is that actually it takes me slightly too long to memorize, and execution is just so unpredictable. So, yeah, I'm expecting more problems there. In case anyone's still here wondering what cubes these are Yushin Kailin V2Ms. They might be. I might have just made that name up. I don't know anything about cubing hardware. People ask. I know it's Yushin Kailin. I think there's a V2M in there somewhere. They are magnetic, so there's probably an M in the name. Don't know what V2 means. I have no idea about so much terminology. I kind of got them. They're super cheap. They've got tiles. I'm a big fan of sticker cubes. I feel like that's anyone who's older always prefers the stickered ones because they were the ones that were out when they were younger or when they were learning them. And sticker cubes really suck for blind because the second they start to peel, they're no good. So I found the Kylin. I'm not sure I even knew that it was going to be tiled when I got the first one. I think I was just ordering loads of different cubes to test them out. But when it arrived, then straight away ordered 10 of them. And then now I've bumped that up to 40. And since I've kind of adopted it for multi, I just decided I was going to make it my main cube for everything. So while I don't really know anything about cube setup or lube or anything like that, I've got really into just playing with tensions and things like that and cleaning them regularly. I was spending quite a long time trying to get a sub 12 average at home, and went out and Tao one day just kind of said, like, do you want your cubes to be this tight? And I just assumed that, you know, whatever a cube company sends you the cube like from the box is what it should be like. And then I tried his and it was not that tight at all. So I've played with just cleaning all of them as often as I can and detensioning them massively, so just having them as loose as I can get them to go without pieces popping out. And I find that's pretty comfortable for me. Like, I've got quite a few sub 10 3x3 solves with them. I don't feel like I need anything faster at the minute. The only thing is that they're not very consistent overall. Like, no two cubes feel the same, even though they're the same cube. And while some of that's going to be down to how I've set them up, I've spent a long time just with like two side by side trying to get them to feel exactly the same just when it comes to tension. And there is no mission. They feel like they're made of... They feel like on the inside they're completely different shapes. And I don't know what that is, so maybe somebody else knows, like, what's going on there. Is it the molds that they use? Is it the hardware that they use? Do I just suck at setting up cubes? Because I'm open to that as well. But yeah, I can't figure that out. What it does mean is every time I'm about to go to a comp, I haven't like labeled the better ones or anything like that, so I have to solve all of them, figure out which ones turn nicely, and then stick them in a pile to get them ready to go. It's kind of hard watching this point. It feels like it should be ready to start solving, but I still gotta review like 21 more times, and then we'll be ready to go. That's frustrating. Don't know if you can tell, I'm starting to get a bit restless watching this. If anything, this is motivation to memo faster and trace faster, just because, yeah, I don't know, it feels kind of slow. There was a time in my life when saying I could memo a cube in 20 seconds felt unrealistically fast. And now that I'm looking at it, I'm just like, yeah, come on, speed it up. Don't know if this is useful for me. Don't know if it's useful for. I know for a fact there's no one listening at this point, so it's really just for me. And yeah, what am I getting from this? We'll see later. I'm getting from it that I want to memo faster and just remember stuff faster. If things are going well, these should all be faster now. I feel like these should take 15 seconds max. Yeah, that's like 8 seconds. Feel free to call me out on my counting skills. I'm just kind of looking at the timer. But yeah, now it's picking up. Can get into the solving pretty soon. Not quite sure what my end goal is with these either. I always thought that 20 was my limit, and I guess everybody always picks a number that seems realistic, and then once you get close to that, you just pick a bigger and bigger number. At the moment, I've got 64 cubes that I can use, and since the world record was done with 64, guess I'm gonna see how well I can ration my times to get close to that. Made all the rooms out and everything, but in terms of like what's realistic in a competition, don't know. Starting to think 30, and yeah, again, maybe once once I get closer to that, then it'll be like, well, why not 40? But yeah, who knows? I guess back when I thought 20 was impressive, also 20 was like easily top 100 in the world, maybe even top 50, and nowadays that's gone way up. So I don't know what it is now. It's maybe like 24 or something. So yeah, maybe by the time I get to 30 and I think, it's not so hard, maybe the whole world will also think that it's not so hard, and just the standard will be so much better anyway that it doesn't quite feel like the achievement that I think it's gonna feel like now. Don't know if that makes any sense. But yeah, that's just for speculating with for now. Guess I gotta make 18 work in the first place. It's always kind of, as the numbers get bigger, it's always a big surprise taking the blindfold off and seeing there's like 4 that aren't right, because like I said, if the problem's with my execution, I don't really notice it. Like, I don't know where I'm doing it wrong, and even when I'm watching these back, I'm not good enough at watching what I'm doing to be able to see, yeah, you got that alg wrong. So then, in my mind, it's like either they should all be right or none of them should be right. I think these days, now, like for this comp especially, memo felt fine. I was usually pretty confident that, whatever came up into my head was the correct letter pairs. But execution, yeah, no idea. I guess we'll see what's potentially going wrong or what's not. Just moving these ones to the front now. Looks like I'm starting to feel a bit more nervous, so I'm holding my hip, which is weird. I think that means my back's getting a bit tense, so I guess there's possibly some fatigue there. and my hands are moving a lot faster, touching my face a lot more, literally moving everything around. So that's interesting to know that right when I get into that last packet, I guess this is the point where it feels like no going back. Once I get to this review, I kind of need to start. Also, we're at about 40 minutes here, so I guess there's that feeling of like time's running out. I've got 1 minute per cube, which isn't bad. If I'm averaging 50 seconds execution, actually I should only need 15 minutes to do all 18. So in theory I've got 5 minutes left here, but yeah, I can tell pressure is mounting and I'm not dealing with it especially well. Not too badly, like I'm not drastically changing my posture or anything. But yeah, like acting totally erratically. I just went to put the blindfold cover on without actually memoing the final cube, which is not clever. But looks like we're about ready to go. I don't know what other people think is best order to do things. Is it harmonica holder first, then blindfold on second, or the other way around? I don't really have any thoughts on it. I think my main thought is if I put the blindfold on first, I might forget to lift the cover, and that's going to be a problem. But I don't think I do it consistently anyway. All right, here we go. So into the solving. Kind of doesn't look too bad in terms of, like, everything looks a lot smoother than in the previous videos I've watched. Don't know if I'm ever going to upload those. I'm going to try and do just the recent ones. I guess if I miss a month, I'll upload the old ones. But yeah, nothing too crazy with that one. Just whether or not it gets finished. No, DNF. DNF on the... I can't even tell. Just 1 3 cycle, I think. This one I'm being a little bit more cautious with, so I guess memo isn't so comfortable just yet. I'm trying to even remember what the final outcome. I think I got 14 out of 18, so that was a score of 10, which every year until now was enough to win. And this year, no. Cool. Yeah, there's what I'm talking about, of putting the cube exactly down, so like my spatial awareness seems to be on point. But yeah, it becomes kind of madness, like the whole thing of having to like reach over. Up until I started practicing it this time around, I always assumed it would be so much harder to put things down in the right place, but actually the amount of stress every single time when I finish a cube and I'm going to put it down, I just have this like mode of panic, like where, yeah, again, and I'm worried about them falling down. I'm worried about have I actually stuck it on like number 13 up there? No idea. And then when I'm reaching over, am I going to now knock it down on the next one? What's that going to do? All of that's pretty frustrating, pretty scary. Okay, this one I am stuck. So far, what I've learned from myself is as soon as I start doing this little sway that I'm doing with my trunk, I'm usually done for. That's like my full on anxiety coming out. So I would say this one is I'm either going to put it down to the side like I'm going to come back to it later and somehow remember it. Oh, maybe I'll get lucky. Well, looks like I've got it. Who would have thought? It's gonna be correct. Just corner twist. Huh. Cool. Well done, me from the past. Yeah, this cube's not turning as well as the others. And that's what I mean about setting them up. It can be really hard to find. When I got 18 out of 40, it's like, should be easy enough to find 18 cubes that turn well out of all of them, but I'm really bad at planning travel, so I'm usually trying to select 18 cubes 5 minutes before I need to leave for the competition. So usually it's just doing sexy move or like a U-perm 3 times over and then making a decision based off that. But this one, yeah, wasn't turning so well compared to the others. And because of that, I've forgotten the corners as well. I'm curious about how much the lockups and things like that take away from memo. Like how much of that was I just forgot it, I didn't memorize it right, or when I got those little lockups during the solve, stress levels went up. And then one of the things happens as your stress levels go up, your memory kind of disappears. So, like, memory is supposed to be a parasympathetic activity or like a rest and digest thing that we do. Your memory is best when you're not currently in danger, because when you're not currently in danger, your eyes are supposed to be scanning the whole environment to see what things are around, and they don't spend very long on any one thing. They kind of just jump from place to place. And so your short-term memory, when you're relaxed like that, that's when it needs to work the hardest, because it needs to remember, okay, I saw this over here, I saw this over here, I saw this over here. And then when you see something move or something shake, or when you look back over and things are different, it's like, that wasn't like that before, so now it's time to be stressed. Whereas when your stress levels go up and you are in imminent danger, you don't really need memory, because the thing you need to focus on is right there, right in front of you. So as a general rule, as stress levels go up, short-term memory just gets pushed to the side. And so, yeah, I guess that's something that I haven't thought about until right now, that having these little lockups and things, so that's going to be the quality of the cube, but also my ability to perform the specific algorithms required, might actually be the thing that's making my memory worse, and it might not actually be what's happening in the memorization stage. And that kind of feels right as well, because that's what it felt like in this solve particularly, that I kind of felt like I had it right. It was one of those ones where like I lifted up the blindfold going, yeah, this could very well be 18 out of 18, because actually, is that true? I don't know about that one cube, whether I ever get to the end of it, but it felt like mostly it was pretty good. I do know that. Those flipped edges, I think I've discovered what that is as well. So I've been getting a lot of flipped edges recently, and I think it's because I've been trying to move the cube less when I'm tracing. And so if I'm looking underneath the cube for like a W or something like that, if I see the W, or if I get to the W position and I see what's next, I'm trying to do it with as little movement as possible. So normally when I would look at what's on the bottom, then I'd reset and hold it in the neutral position, and then I would move it to the next position and then go back to neutral, and then I'd move it to the next one and go back to neutral, and that's using up a whole lot of time. So I'm trying to figure out, right, if I look at what's in the W position, can I do it? What's the least amount of turning the cube? Can I do it without turning the cube and just use my eyes to look in the right spot? Or can I just make a minimal turn and then see what's next and see what's next from there? But the problem is, I think while I'm doing that, I'm starting to look at pieces in the wrong place. So like looking at a J instead of a P, for example, which I'm just seeing from that top cube, it looks like that's what I've done. For reference as well, I use yellow on the top, red on the front. I know nobody else in the world does that. That is because, as I said, for like the first 5 years, I hadn't really even looked into like any cubing forums or any big tutorials or anything like that. I'd looked at YouTube videos on how to solve blindfolded, but they all said choose your orientation. And on whatever website I was using, I think it was like Bob Burton's website, when it showed a solved cube, it always showed it with yellow on top and red and green on the front. And in fact, when you see people doing F2L cases, usually it's a solved cube with yellow on top, red on the front, and green on the side. So I just got so used to that orientation that I decided that was going to be my blind solving orientation, and just worked it all out according to that. I didn't even know at the time that there was a orientation to scramble the cube in. I didn't have like any cube timing app for years and years. And so yeah, when I found out actually green in front, white on top, it was already too late. I was already doing plenty of blind solves. Sorry, that was a tangent. So there's loads of towers getting built up here, and yeah, that's gonna fall. And I can see my hands starting to shake as I start to worry about what state those towers are in. Like, I can see that one's 3 high. I don't think I ever thought about that. Like, I never thought I was going that high, because my worry would be that something's going to fly off the top of the table. So I guess I think that one's just a 2 high. But yeah, insanely consistent of always reaching towards the exact same spots. Okay, moving into the last row. I always find for some reason this final row, which is the second row when I'm starting out, so that's like cube set. Oh yeah, that was close. Cube 7 to 12 always seem to be much easier. Can't remember if that was the case. Well, I think it must have been as well, because I think I've already had my 4 DNFs at this point. So I think all of these are going to be successes. Not totally sure why that is. I feel like the first 6 I don't do so well for, like, I need a bit of a warm up into it. The first cube always feels good, but then after that, like, the next 5 are always a bit more of a struggle. Like, I can get through them easy enough, but then the review is always a nightmare. And that next 6, that second 6, just feels like the sweet spot, where I'm not too fatigued from doing it over and over again. And then maybe also it's something to do with, as I'm solving, when my brain can sense that I'm nearly finished, it's just like, cool, let's just get these out of the way. It always seems to go a lot better. Oh, and I think I've just missed it. I think that was Simon in the back corner there, who at this point has just broken NR. First time in 5 years that it wasn't me. So yeah, nice one, Simon. And he's done it since as well. He's done it again with like 21 out of 24 as well, which is pretty impressive. So yeah, that's my motivation boost. But I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take me to get back on track. So looking at this person, action, object stuff was a bit harder than I thought it was going to be. So I'm not feeling particularly ready for the next comp yet. But we'll just have to take it as it comes. Alright, nearly there. Oh no, we did DNF one of these as well. Maybe I got less than 10 points. I can't remember. That would have been good to look up before I talked mindlessly for a full hour, but that's alright. Cool, this one's going pretty fast. Somebody's taking my stopwatch, so time's nearly up. Oh yeah, we got under 2 minutes, which means I'm pretty sure I get to the end of these, so I'm about to solve above average speed. Or not. Kind of done with this. Can't tell whether this was a good idea. I got some good thoughts and insights. I'll probably do this again. I'm talking to myself. I don't need to justify it. You can let me know what you thought or not. If you watched it this far, tell me why. Write down in the comments why. What was useful about this. I'm going to do my own thing. And oh, I've remembered this one. Nice when that happens. I feel like that's going to be a lot easier when I'm replacing them back in order. So when I'm putting them back in the packet, then that should, in theory, be a lot easier to figure out. Hasn't come up yet. Like, since I've been practicing, hasn't ever come up. But the way I practice, usually it's quite hard to go back over things. I'm usually quite strict on how much I ration my time. Alright, maybe I don't get these finished. I got a feeling There's surely only about 10 seconds left at most. So probably getting a tap on the shoulder. There it is. Cool. All right. If you're still here, thank you. And yeah, well, let me know what you thought if you want or don't. Watch my other videos. I want to know what you think of those. I'd like those to be helpful. So let me know what you think of those, and maybe I'll see you with another one of these long, kind of pointless videos. Cheers.